So we have blue-white control from Livy going up against resident brewer of the store, Bismon, playing his Abzan version of the Gearhulk deck. It's going to be a bit of a toolbox package, a bit of a mid-range grind, and there are actually some Nurturing Pixie bounce shenanigans. So why don't we hop into game to see how this one shakes out here. Bismon on the left on the Abzan Gearhulk deck, and Livy over on the right. They're going to be on the Azorius Control deck.
Yeah, so the Gearhulk we're referring to is the Brightglass Gearhulk, which is the new green-white Gearhulk that when it enters the battlefield, you can search for your deck up to 2 artifact creature or enchantment card with mana value 1 or less, and put them to your hand. So people have been experimenting with Brightglass Gearhulk in the collector cage shell, but Bismon doing things a little bit different, like always.
Yeah, Bismon has basically taken this package, gotten rid of the cage, and added it into what was originally like the Golgari mid-range shell, but then leaned into the Orzhov Pixie side of things too. So we have things like one of Hopeless Nightmare, one of Nowhere to Run, one of a Momentum Breaker, all of these permanents that are going to be his removal package, in addition to the Nurturing Pixie to bounce things that you can tutor off of the Gearhulk. Whereas on Livy's side, it's a bit more of a traditional straight-up blue-white control deck. We wound up seeing a lot of people at the Pro Tour, a lot of the pro players, such as Arnie Huschenball, and a lot of the players on that team running the Azorius Control shell to great success in a field that was expected to be very aggro and mid-range centric.
Yeah, so the recent build of blue-white control is very much geared toward beating basically the top 2 deck in the format is Domain and Red decks. For Domain, you do struggle in that matchup a little bit, but how you show up that matchup is you play a full playset of Jace in the main deck. Sometimes you just mill them for 30 cards and they just die.
That's usually how that matchup goes too, because basically you're going to be staring at each other a lot, and it's on the Domain deck to really be the one to do something. But in this matchup specifically, Bismon is going to be one that's hard pressed to do something, such as playing this Preacher, this Schism, which is mid-range the card, to try to get some sort of advantage on the battlefield or through some card draw early.
So Livy here, land path. I'm surprised they didn't fire off that get lost on the Preacher on the end step of Bismon.
Got a planes?
Yeah.
Maybe want to save it for something a little bit more impactful, but I think Preacher is pretty impactful.
I can't really blame Livy for wanting to see if there's something bigger from Bismon's deck to want to counter, because if I'm looking at Bismon's deck for the first time and I see Plains, Forest, Golgari Surveil Land, and Preacher of the Schism is being played, I'm like, all right, there's got to be like a Shield Raid or something that I'm going to want to use this Get Lost on instead.
Yeah, but because of that, Bismon get the full value of this Preacher of the Schism here. Get the lose 1 life, draw a card, and make a token because life total is the same. Using Ride's End. Okay, Ride's End here. Interesting spot for it. Maybe they didn't have to get lost. Maybe they drew the get lost for turn.
Maybe that might be the case, but the Ride's End will exile the Preacher of the Schism, so potentially worrying about, like, I don't know, reanimation shenanigans. We've seen some reanimation shenanigans on our stream already tonight.
I mean, if you're in black, Zombify is always a card, and these are 3 out of 4 colors of Atraxa, so maybe like some Zombify Atraxa shenanigans.
Some white, we could just helping hand our Preacher of the Schism back. That's a thing we could do, but instead it's just going to be yet another one of those mid-range centric cards in Mosswood Dread Knight, going to hit the battlefield. Actually, both modes are going to be used. Just a quick little shortcut there from Bismon, drawing a card and losing a life, and then immediately playing it off of its adventure.
Yeah, and this is mid-range D card right here. On the adventure side, you lose a life, draw a card, and on the creature side, overstatic creature with keyword like trample, 3/2 trampler for 2, and when it dies, you can just cast the adventure side again, draw another card, play a creature again. Just mid-range the card.
This is one of the cards that you may want to use the Ride's End on, so you can exile it, and your opponent's not going to wind up having any sort of card draw or card advantage available. But instead, Livy just going to tap all 4 mana here, and they're going to throw down Overlord of the Mistmoors. This is something that the blue-white decks have done over the course of Standard here, is basically putting a lot more threats in their deck.
Yeah, so blue-white control before, because you had a lot more instant speed threat, and your card draw is a little bit more powerful, you get to just play a really threat light deck and just bank on the fact that you're just gonna outdraw your opponent. But now with the card advantage option a little bit limited, kind of have to put in a lot more threat and threat that can trade up either in card advantage or in mana. So Overlord of the Mistmore is one of those cards that will trade up in card advantage because you get the two guys, and then those two guys can trade for maybe some real creatures.
It looks like, I believe that's a Grim Bauble coming out from Bismon's side. Going to give -2/-2 to one of those 2/1 flying moths. And it looks like now just swinging it with everybody. We get a 1/1 lifelinker from the Preacher of the Schism was left behind. Does Livy want to wind up trading away their remaining insect and wind up only taking one off of this Mossword Dread Knight? Bismon may just be saving a land drop for post-combat to be able to utilize that card draw effect if that's the case.
Yeah, if it was me here, I'd be hard-pressed to try to trade this for Mossword Dread Knight. You really don't want to give your like Golgari opponent the Mossword Dread Knight over and over again, because that's how they're gonna beat you. Because they get access to repeatable hard draw while you don't. There's no way to do that in blue light at the moment. So just kind of accept the fact that you're just gonna take a little bit of damage from this Mossword Dread Knight. Is that Dusk Rose Reliquary?
That is a Dusk Rose Reliquary. That's going to wind up sacrificing the Grim Bauble, because that is an additional cost to the spell. Sacrifice a creature or an artifact. That's going to put the Dusk Rose Reliquary into play, exiling the remaining token, it looks like, rather than going straight up after anything else. It does have to be a artifact or creature to exile, and the Overlord is not yet one of those. But then just immediately going to be bounced away by Nurturing Pixie, and that's the bounce aspect of the deck that Bismon has.
Yeah, and we also get to see the toolbox aspect of Brightglass Gearhulk. All these spells are target for Brightglass Gearhulk, like the Grim Bauble, the Dust Roll Reliquary. Nurturing Pixie is like an all-star for Brightglass Gearhulk to be able to tutor up, because you can just tutor up Brightglass Pixie, play it, bounce the Brightglass Gearhulk, tutor for 2 more cards. It's pretty sweet.
And the one downside is Bismon did not have a 5th land drop for turn, so being behind on lands against the control deck is going to be not the best spot in the world. And then with the bounce shenanigans happening from Bismon's side, we see Livy having a Beza in their hand right here. So Beza right now won't get any treasures because Livy does have more mana or land available than Bismon does. But looking at cards in hand, it's pretty close if Beza's going to draw cards in addition to making a bunch of tokens at this point.
So I believe you just kind of have to fire up this Beza. Beza gonna end up eating this Dust Roll Reliquary as well. So I believe just gain 4. So Bismon have 5 cards in hand. So I don't know if Livy is gonna draw cards here.
I think Livy may also have 5 cards in hand, and even does not work with Beza, unfortunately. But we are going to wind up getting 2 fish.
2 little guys,
Fish.
like as I like to call them. I call all my children little guys.
Well, you have rabbits, you have fish, you have...
Yes.
I guess you're samurai and pioneer. All right, dude.
Yeah, make a dude. It's a 2/2 dude originally.
Little duder.
Yeah, a little duder.
All right, well, these 2 duders come into play alongside Beza, the 4/5. Going to be putting up, like you said, a decent defense game what Bismon is doing, although with the Duskwood's Reliquary that was bounced to hand, Bismon can always just get rid of that vampire token and remove the big bad elemental elk if he so chooses. But Livy does now have 2 fish to wind up trying to take out that Mossword Dread Knight or stem the bleeding a little bit if there's a follow-up attack creature.
Yeah, and if you... I'm thinking back to the first turn for Livy. They surveil away a temporary lockdown. That would have been great in the spot.
Yeah, pretty solid, especially now that we know from Livy's side, they now know that Bismon's playing a deck that has a lot of these low drop things, can maybe infer a Gearhulk just from the package of spells, and if not, a lot of pixies and things like that, which would then signal being a very low mana curve deck. The downside is, Bismon's deck is an all low mana curve.
Yeah, but in this spot, if Bismon doesn't know that Livy have a 10 block down hand and he fire off this Dust Rose Reliquary, you can just 10 block down, take everything. Oh, this is sweet. You're sacking the Mosswood Dread Knight
and then drawing a card.
and then drawing a card.
All right, so Beza gets exiled. Oh, whoa, exiling a fish. Not yet even exiling Beza.
Oh, interesting. This might signal that we have another Pixie in hand.
Maybe,
Potentially.
but we tapped our white mana, so we only have green open right now.
Interesting.
And we did not draw another land, so Bismont just desperately digging for lands, but did not want to get rid of the Beza right now.
Because you don't want to get rid of Beza. If your plan is to pick up this Dust Rose Reliquary and keep removing stuff.
That would be a very quick way to undo all of your combat damage against Livy.
Yeah. So, I mean, Livy is still in a great spot here.
Oh yeah, we have 2 turns till the Mistmores comes off cooldown. Wow, off of impending. you can tell what I used to cast.
Basically off cooldown.
Yeah. Ooh, and Jace. So there we go. We got all 3 threats from the blue-white control deck front and center. We're just missing a whale.
Yeah. So I believe Jace. Yeah, I would take up Jace here. Just lock down that Pixie for a little while. You are not like super behind on card advantage, so just being able to stave off a little bit of damage until this Overlord comes off of impending, pretty good spot. And if you wind up drawing a second Jace, you can go ahead and -6 here, mill 18 cards, and then play the other one to draw 3.
Yeah.
3 cards and draw 3 cards.
Just having one chain into the other one, which is why 4 of Jace in this style of deck is a pretty powerful thing to have. But the turn getting passed back over to Bismon, one of the things that Livy can kind of rest easy in knowing is that the face-up removal that Bismon has can't deal with a Planeswalker. So even bouncing this Duskers Reliquary will only be able to get rid of a creature. So that'll only get rid of the fish and or Beza if Bismon wants to try to attack into the Jace. But there's only that 1/1 Vampire with lifelink available because the other Flying Pixie, even though it has a counter on it, it's -3, -0 currently, and Bismon's just going to get rid of the token to get rid of the token.
Yeah, so just trying to remove the stuff that will be removed permanently. Like again, don't really want to put the Beza. Oh, and Momentum Breaker will be a clean answer to Beza here, but gonna get mad with a negate.
Yeah, so negate comes out. We saw Livy contemplating having a response to the Duskers Reliquary, but just let that one resolve. Sure, it may wind up being bounced, but this Momentum Breaker would have been huge. The key thing on Momentum Breaker is even though it is a permanent, it can't sacrifice Planeswalker. It's a vehicle or a creature, so while it does get rid of Beza, this Jace is still super safe in Livy's eyes.
I think I would cash in Jace. It really depends on what you have in hand. Like, that's the thing about like blue-white control. Like, your lines can really change depends on what cards you have in hand. Like if you have follow-up responses or follow-up removal, you can just cash in this Jace, draw a couple of draw a card. But if you still want to like just protect Jace a little bit, take up on one of the Pixie.
Yeah, I mean, if you take up one of the Pixies, you're basically saying Jace is going to go -1 because we have another Pixie on the side of the field for Bismon currently, because that other Pixie is probably going to be swinging in. But if you -2 Jace, you can start milling Bismon, get rid of some of that tutor package that he has, his toolbox in the deck, and then just wind up drawing some cards of your own. But it looks like Livy instead is just going to wind up ticking up on that Pixie and making this Jace be a lasting threat, and maybe just making Bismon, who has stumbled on land drops for the last couple of turns, just be the one to try to move first. And then Livy has that get lost we've known about for a while, and a lot of maybe reactionary cards from the control deck could just put Bismon out of the game on Jace alone.
Yeah. And
we forgot about the impending Overlord coming off.
Yeah, he went off cooldown.
Yeah, it went off cooldown now, so Ultimate is online.
Yeah, so now with the Overlord coming off of impending, Livy is now be able to like be more aggressive.
Oh yeah, we see Get Lost being fired off on just a Pixie.
So 2 map token here for Bismon. Be able to map that like basically lockdown Pixie. Oh, found the 5th mana.
All right, 5 mana. Most importantly, second black source. Still only 2 available of green or black in combination with one another.
I mean, do have the green white require for Brightglass Gearhulk?
Oh, this one's gonna have to be red here. Meticulous Excavation. We knew about this one from last time when Bismon was playing this deck. This is Pixie on a stick. You just get to put it into play. You tap 3, and you can activate it once during your turn to bounce something.
Yeah, so 1 mana, put it into play, and then so is this a little bit more mana intensive to be able to pick up stuff? Ooh. So double nowhere to run here to get rid of the overlords. Kind of have to. You don't really want it to swing in and start making more dudes.
That's a pretty solid response, though. So that's
Yeah.
going to knock out one of the big threats from Livy's side of the battlefield, and Bismon now has some permanents he can bounce if we're able to get. You have that Meticulous Excavation there, so being able to bounce and replay nowhere to run with 5 mana available is perfect for being able to get rid of some threats from Livy's side. But like we said, this Jace is well and protected. Beza's just sitting here being a big ol' elk, and Bismon needs to find some sort of proactive plan to start damaging Livy's life total as well.
Yeah, and if this go long enough, Livy can just tick up this Jace forever, and then just
Forever?
enough until it just kills this one in one go.
I mean, that is the thing with these long drawn out games. That's why it's so good against the domain deck. They're playing up the beanstalk to help them draw cards and everything. But I mean, if this Jace is going to go uninhibited, Bismon's, let's say there's 15 cards, maybe 20 or so. That Jace just needs to hit, a 10 counter Jace is mill 30.
Yeah. So
Or just have second Jace.
I mean, I've done it quite a lot where I go Jace 15, Jace 15.
Yeah, we could do that in one. Oh, here we go. Livy's pulling the trigger now. So mill 21.
That might signal a second Jace in hand, because now you guarantee your opponent have that's more than 20 cards in their graveyard. So second Jace would draw 3 cards here.
It's good old Jace the Mind Sculptor drawing 3
Thrun
cards.
in the main board.
Oh yeah, that's a fun one of the Bismon has here. Thrun, what is it? Thrun Beholder of Silence or whatever. Breaker of Silence.
Yeah.
Having
that
just
card.
that card is so good in this matchup specifically.
Yeah.
And Jace is probably one of the only ways Livy has to deal with it that isn't Sunfall.
Yeah. So quite annoying card. Pretty good that Livy got rid of it with the Jace. You might see a second Jace here. Bismon did a deck count. Livy might just kill him with a second Jace.
Akira, second Jace has hit the battlefield.
Mr. President. Oh, just plus on the Pixie.
All right. Doesn't want to draw 3 right here. Instead, just pluses up. Protects the Jace, most importantly. And we had Bismon taking an additional swing in from the Beza here that we forgot about because we're busy doing Jace math. But
So
Bismon was on 14.
That's 18 card next turn? Bismon might just be dead.
I think so. We milled 21. 18 would mean that we're milling 18 more, so that would put us at 39. And just looking at what Bismon has on the battlefield, there's 6 lands, there's 4 permanents, and a Pixie. And we know that a couple of things have been killed already in addition to these other cards in his graveyard. There's at least 5 or 6 things that have been killed. So yeah, we're looking at like under 20 cards maybe in Bismon's deck.
Yeah.
And he scoops it up.
Yeah, doesn't see a way to get rid of the Chase. And yeah, next turn, Livy had the lethal and like face up and play.
Who knew that mill was a legitimate win condition in Standard in the year of our Lord and Savior Richard Garfield, PhD, 2025?
I mean, when there's a card that say 4 mana mill 15, it's a pretty good way to do it.
I mean, there's been cards that are 2 mana mill 10, and that doesn't mean the strategy's been good before. Also, Kyle, if you're listening, don't tune out for like the last 30 seconds of me talking about
To be
mill.
fair, there is a 6 mana card that just say mill until your opponent have 6 cards in left in deck.
I don't think that that's going to be in the blue-white deck, unfortunately.
No, it won't be.
There are some blue-black decks that are running that card in the room this evening with us. However, Livy is not going to be running that combo of cards. Instead, Livy just going for the straight-up control shell. All right. Normally, we talk about the person who is trying to bounce back in this one, but since you yourself are a blue-white enjoyer, tell me what Livy is trying to bring in against Bismon's deck when Livy... We're not entirely sure if Livy saw the Gearhulks either. Obviously, they milled a bunch of cards from Bismon and looked through the pile, but registering the Gearhulk package, let's assume that Livy knows about it.
Yeah, so assuming that you are aware of Brightglass Gearhulk, Tashana Tiebinder is a surefire way to... It just has to come in.
That hurt.
Because it's 3 mana, it's go under the Gearhulk, that even if you're on the draw, you still have to respond to the Gearhulk. Usually the counterspell of choice out of the sideboard is negate. But if you're on any disdainful stroke, that maybe could come in, but that kind of doesn't really work against the rest of the deck.
Yeah, because the rest of the deck is so small.
Yeah, the rest of the deck is super cheap, so disdainful stroke might not be the greatest thing. You see momentum breaker. Maybe you can assume there's hopeless nightmare in the deck. So if you're on any kind of will live leech or any obstinate bait, those could come in.
Yeah, and as far as Bismon's deck goes, we do have the list actually that he sent us from last week. So if this is the same list that he is running currently, then we know that there are certain cards that he could be bringing in this matchup. There are specifically 3 Hopeless Nightmares in the sideboard, in addition to the one that is in the main deck. Those are probably coming in this matchup, replacing cards like Grim Bobble. There's a couple of Haywire Mites. There's some Ghost Vacuums and stuff. I don't think the Ghost Vacuums would come in, but Haywire Mite and maybe Reclamation Sage if you're thinking about temporary lockdowns or things like that that are going to get rid of all those small things you have.
I think Haywire Mite and Reclamation Sage might be a must bring in for Bismon. In additional to answering temporary lockdown, which is kind of a blowout card against you, it also answers the Overlord with Doomsmore. It's just a clean way to just get rid of the Overlord.
Yeah. In addition to that, there's another Thronebreaker Silence hanging out in the sideboard. So looking at Bismon's list, considering we have the entire list, there are Scrap Shooters in the main deck as well. But looking at what Bismon has, I wouldn't be surprised to see maybe cutting like some of the tutor package like the Grim Bobbles, putting in extra Hopeless Nightmares for that one. There's only one Grim Bobble, so we're also at the point in time where we have to look at Bismon's list and see, okay, what multiples do we cut, because there's so many 1-0s for the Gearhulk package as well. There's 3 Momentum Breakers and 4 Nowhere to Run. So Momentum Breaker we saw in combination with other things being really good. There's a Paw Patch Recruit in his deck as well.
Yeah, I think the Nowhere to Run might be the
there it is.
Oh, the Paw Recruit.
Oh man, I did that thing where I manifest things.
Paw Recruit by itself is not the greatest thing. It's kind of needs to be in combination of other creatures. It does give you +1/+1 counter whenever your stuff get targeted, but on its own, it kind of just die.
So that's a Savannah Alliance.
And it's still a Savannah Alliance with Trample.
Yeah, Savannah Lions with Trample, very strong. Also, the fact that this Paw Patch Recruit means that all of the targeted removal that Livy is going to be pointing at Bismon stuff isn't as great. This follow-up with a Mosswood Dread Knight to start the beatdown plan as well, pretty solid. Temporary Lockdown would be something that would be completely blowout to Bismon if he commits with another 1 or 2 mana spell to follow this up.
So, this is a good spot for something like a Ryzen here. Getting to Ryzen, the Mosswood Dread Knight, is pretty important. Don't really want to find ways to put this Mosswood Dread Knight into the graveyard. It's kind of a recipe for disaster.
It looks like there may be, it's either an Overlord or a Ryzen. I couldn't tell what that was, but it looks like 5 damage is going to be what Livy's taking down to 13 already.
Oh, Meticulous Excavation again.
Maybe looking to bait something out.
He's really good at drawing this Meticulous Excavation.
Yeah, this is the one of fun of in the tutor package normally.
Ooh,
It's not supposed to be there.
No more lies out of it too.
Dang. All right, so the bounce effect maybe just being something to be threatened with the Mosswood Dread Knight for the draw package or something like that. But yeah, Livy just not wanting to deal with the Meticulous Excavation here. Does exile it. And we had a Surveil coming off of the Surveil land played by Bismon here. Winds up just deciding to bin the land and passes the turn back over to Livy, who now, important decision to make. Is there an untapped land and a temporary lockdown, or is there an untapped land and a passing of the turn?
Just passing the turn here could still like be just still waiting on removal spell. Doesn't want to pull the trigger on those just yet because of this Paw Patch Recruit, but could be a doubling up of removal spell here. Right then, target model Dread Knight.
That makes a lot of sense. This is going to exile the Dread Knight. That won't be able to be coming back, but we still take 3 damage because, yeah, we get the +1/+1 counter from the Paw Patch Recruit, and it follows up with a Preacher of the Schism, but no land number 4.
He been a land too, so I kind of expect him to have a land number 4, but guess not. Days of Judgment is it's an option here if Livy is on the Day of Judgment. Beza is also pretty solid in this spot. Won't draw you a card, but we'll get you the 2 fish and buffalo your life total a little bit. Or Overlord is also pretty good.
Yeah, Overlord will make us 2 tokens, so that will trade with the Paw Patch Recruit, but it won't
double block and trade with the Preachers.
And to say the Preacher is the hard thing because the Preacher has Death Touch, and the Preacher is going to start drawing cards really soon for Bismon. We also saw Hopeless Nightmare in Bismon's hand, though. Only 1 black mana available on the board, though, so we'll see if we play that one pre or post combat. Livy being tapped out right now is the turn for Bismon to really do something, though. So it looks like Bismon is just going to start by swinging in, draws a card, loses a life, and now does Livy trade away both of those insects for the Preacher? Or does Bismon have something to say about it? I think there's a Nowhere to Run in hand as well, and that would completely blow out a double block here.
Yeah, if with the with Bismon having Nowhere to Run in hand, there's no real good blocks. If you block the Paw Patch Recruit, you just get trampled through for 3 damage. If you double block Preacher, then you get blowout. Oh,
double blocking.
Clever.
Yeah.
So double blocking the Paw Patch Recruit to play around removal here. Still down to 7 though.
Yeah, it still takes 1 from the trample. Bismon doesn't pull the trigger there because there's no positive play to be had, but now we can maybe just do a follow-up of land drop, hopefully, Hopeless Nightmare.
That would put Livy down to 5.
And I believe put Livy down to 2 cards in hand before a draw.
So Surveil first.
Bismon likes what's on top.
There's a lot of cards in this one hand.
Well, he did miss his land drop last turn.
They just draw 1 with the Preacher. So
oh,
the second one.
All right, Preacher of the Schism number 2, Electric Boogaloo hitting the battlefield. Bismon's got a bunch of things, but board wipe from Livy here. There's a Sunfall in hand, but is there land 5?
I believe there's an Darker Waste at the front of the hand.
It looks like land and Sunfall are there, but Livy deciding if they want to pull the trigger on that one for just 2 Preachers.
I think you kind of have to. This is a lot of cards Bismon is going to draw. It's kind of forced to Sunfall here. Get a 2/2 Incubator token.
I believe that's a Duder.
It is a Duder. It's one of my favorite Duder. It's a Duder that usually draw you a card with Caretaker Tower.
All right, so Impending Counter comes off. Turn passes back over to Bismon. We have all of the mana in the world available. How many Hopeless Nightmares do we have? We start off at number 1.
Pixie Hopeless Nightmare is pretty solid here for Bismon. That's a lot of damage going through.
Yep, Livy down to 5. Reclamation Sage. That's going to wind up taking out the Overlord or the token. Takes out the Overlord straight up.
Going after the Overlord. The token's not too big of a threat. It's kind of small.
Look at that. 3 mana, destroy target Overlord.
Yeah.
I can read.
It's just good. After all these years, 2 mana, 2/1, Disenchant is still good.
You know why? It's because it has creature type Elf.
You can find it with what was it called? Nissa?
Nissa? Yeah. Ever flip into a Reclamation Sage off of your Nissa? That's a disappointing feeling. That's like when my parents sent my report card. All right, Jace, Perfected Mind.
It's back again.
That's going to tick up, target the Reclamation Sage, and we saw this Jace the Perfected Mind solo Bismon last game, so we'll see how highly he considers getting rid of it as soon as possible.
I don't know how good his deck is at getting rid of Planeswalker.
That's true.
Very good.
There are no sort of
Like no get lost.
no Shieldred's Edicts in the sideboard or anything like that either. Instead, it's going to be Preacher number 3 and a passing of the turn here from Bismon. So that gives Livy the green light to start doing something with the blue-white deck.
I think you're kind of priced into minusing Jace here to plus again, targeting I believe the Preacher.
Yeah. Yeah, targets the Preacher.
The funny thing is, Preacher only need to attack.
Yeah, it doesn't need to deal damage.
Doesn't need to do damage to trigger. So.
Now, but we have a Restless Anchorage and the Incubate token here. Enough mana to do both as well. So Bismon needs to be a little bit careful. Like, activating this Preacher with 0 power means Death Touch isn't online. You could just double block and kill it.
Bismon still have the removal spell in hand. So.
I think the Nowhere to Run is still in hand. There's only 2 cards left for Bismon, so Bismon just double checking his own card right here to make sure it doesn't have to deal damage, and it's an attack trigger. Put that back up on the screen for everybody.
Bismon will lose 1 life and draw a card here. So Livy can animate the Restless Anchorage, flip over the Incubator token, and attempt to do a double block on this Preacher to schedule.
Or Livy could take 0. Because this is plussed up by Jace. So.
Take 0.
I said Bismon's already gotten his value off of this by just attacking in. This is like when you attack with Tameo in Modern.
I think I've camera froze.
Oh, is that what wound up happening? That's why nothing has happened here. So Livy is not taking too much time with this. It's just that we're gonna give our camera a little bit of a refresh to see what's happening over here. And okay, so it wound up getting rides ended.
Yeah, I believe I heard Livy said rides end. So it wound up getting rides ended, and there's a Brightglass Gearhulk coming.
This could find a Pixie and a Hopeless Nightmare, and that would pretty much be basically
That's
lights
exactly
out.
what you said. Pixie plus Hopeless Nightmare.
I believe, yeah, Livy's empty-handed as well. So Livy's on top deck mode.
So animate the Incubator token at the end of turn. No more cards in hand.
Yep. We're just on top deck mode here. So Livy, Temp Lockdown would be great. And we have something to block the Gearhulk with. Oh, I didn't see what Livy drew.
I didn't see either. But I'm looking at it. This looks lethal for Bismon.
I mean, all we have to do is start off by attacking with both things.
We just connect with one thing.
Yeah. And then we can Pixie a Hopeless Nightmare, put Livy down to 1, and then the Pixie's lethal next turn.
The Brightglass Gearhulk also have trample.
Yeah, Brightglass Gearhulk is a 4/4 first strike trampler, so that will just be lethal through the Incubator token, but we still have the Restless Anchorage. Oh, but we don't have a blocker for the... Well, one of these things is probably getting plussed up by Jace if Livy's in survival mode.
I might downtick Jace to see if we can find any sort of like sweeper effects, or we're plussing. I see. I mean, if we plus up here, we can block the Brightglass with our Anchorage, plus block the Reclamation Sage with our Incubator token. We'll still take 2 from the Hopeless Nightmare coming back from Pixie. So that will put us down to 1.
There's another Hopeless Nightmare.
And
unless there's a counterspell in hand. Livy could have counterspell.
Something like a negate. And it is.
All right, exactly negate. So Bismon doesn't have Livy dead to rights yet, but now, do we have... We have
enough mana.
Okay, we have enough mana to activate both things. Okay.
The Incubator's already flipped. We just didn't flip it over.
Yeah, I was just wondering if making sure we had enough mana to still activate the Restless Anchorage and block. All right, but now we have to chump.
Wait, Bismon have a Nowhere to Run.
Oh yeah, that Nowhere to Run should still be there, but
if he Nowhere to Run, he doesn't have.
No, he still does.
Oh, he does have.
Because there's a black-white mana right there. So Nowhere to Run connects. Now Livy has to trade take 1, goes down to exactly 2, and then Bismon has the face-up Pixie.
Take two. Take one. Yeah.
Yeah, because the Gearhulk is shrunk by the Jace. But now Livy should just be dead to rights. All right.
We're getting a game 3 here.
First time.
First time today.
Yeah, I mean, well, the second round was the first time we got a game 2. No, well, a game 2 that finished anyway.
we did play. We did finish 1 into 2, and now we're getting a game 3, which is very exciting. It's more blue-white control.
I mean, I know that you love yourself a good old blue-white control deck, so now that we've kind of seen what both of these players are going to be doing, we saw that Bismon had definitely brought in a bunch of these Hopeless Nightmares. We saw that he brought in the Reclamation Sages. Now, if you're Livy's side and you saw what Bismon has brought to the table, Livy is looking back at their sideboard and taking out some cards and putting some in. So, resident blue-white control expert, what are you doing in Livy's seat?
These are definitely Obstinate Bailoff and Will of the Features, if Livy is on any of them. The list that I'm playing have a one-of Obstinate Bailoff that is very hard to cast, but there's also 2 Will of Leech. So those are definitely coming in, and we're seeing this many Hopeless Nightmare. And sometimes you can just basically scam your opponent out of a game if they trying to do the early Hopeless Nightmare turns, and you just have the Will-Leaf Leech in your hand.
Will-Leaf Leech is also an interesting card because it'll pump up all of your Overlord of the Mistmore tokens as well. Yeah. It pumps up your Restless Anchorage, because I believe Restless Anchorage is a blue-white creature.
Yep, a blue-white creature.
So yeah, that's a lot of things that the Will-Leaf Leech can actually Lord affect. And in combination with the fact that you have a bunch of other, I mean, it pumps up your Beza, pumps up your Overlord in and of itself. Are you... Now, in some of these lists, I know some of the Pro Tour lists specifically, we're running like a 1 or 2 of Horned Locked Whale. Is that the slot that you're taking out and just putting Wiltleaf Legion?
If it's not already getting sideboarded out.
I'm assuming the Whale's getting sideboarded out in this matchup in general.
Yeah, Whale is kind of a hedge card. It's like your 5th copy of Rise End for the aggro matchup. And it can act as like a finisher if the games go long. But in general, Whale is only really good into one specific matchup. So usually by game 2 or game 3, if you're not playing against aggro, Whale is pretty much out of that.
All
so it's not already out already. I imagine it'll be out.
Well, we saw No More Lies. We saw Negate. So we know that there is some number of counter magic still in the deck. Do you think here the question is what cards was Livy trimming on to put the sideboard cards in the first place? I mean, assuming the Whale is already gone, we know that we saw at least 3 cards that were being brought in here from Livy. So like, what else is coming out? Because you're probably not bringing out Jaces, probably not bringing out creatures.
I would have trimmed Jace. Like,
oh, you think so?
Yeah, I think Jace would have been trimmed if Livy is not like if not boarding in too many cards in game 2. You could trim down to like 2 or 3 Jays, but if you want to bring in the full set of the Will-Leaf Leech, I think just entirely cutting Jays is a possible thing.
All right.
It's not super important, and you're kind of banking on your creature to do a lot of the heavy lifting to close out the game.
All right, now getting a deciding game number 3 in this final round. It is round 3 of 3 here at Card Art Standard Thursday. Now, if you're unfamiliar with the pricing structure, it's $3 per win in store credit or a pack per win. So the winner of this one is going to go 3-0. It's 3 packs or $9 of credit. It was $5 to enter, so they can so choose to get a pack and save their entry for next week as well if they want to.
Also, if you go undefeated, I believe you usually you would get a promo pack.
Oh, because these are considered standard showdowns, yeah.
Yeah, but also I think they might have run out of promo packs, so they're giving out box top.
Oh,
which is pretty sweet. Like,
you know what the box topper for Aetherdrift was?
I believe those are first place foils.
Oh, those are pretty nice. All right, Hopeless Nightmare turn 1. Does Livy discard a Wiltleaf Liege? Drum roll, please.
If they're taking this long to consider, it's probably not a Will-Leaf Leech.
No, an island is the discard here. Livy going to be taking 2 damage down to 18. Bismon passes the turn back on over. Livy considering what land to play. Plays the Plains they were considering discarding before. It looks like Rides and No More Lies. Just a bunch of responsive cards in Livy's hand.
Yeah, just pretty content to just set it out with all of these answers in your hand.
Ooh, one of your favorite cards in the deck. Fountain Port.
This card, ever since Blue World, this card has been one of my favorite cards. It just does everything you want in a utility land, except tapping for color, which it still can generate color mana if you're willing to invest a little bit of mana into it.
Yeah, or, you know, play it in Pioneer, play with Urborg. Makes colored mana then. Dryad of the Elysian Grove, makes colored mana then.
The Woe Tree, you see it a lot around here.
World Tree, makes colored mana then. None of those legal in Standard, however. So Fountain Port is just going to be a value engine here for Livy, based on the land base here. And, all right, we're going to start off with Nurturing Pixie. No land draw for Bismon, so this is going to get no more lies. Exile that Pixie. Get out of here.
Really don't want your opponent to pick up this Hopeless Nightmare when you don't have one of those, if I discard this creature, just come into play.
Bismon looks like he might have been banking on that card synergy between those two as well. No land number 3 yet again for Bismon here.
So kept the card on top of the Seville. I believe Livy also have a negate in hand.
Yeah.
So if Bismon want to fire off one of those Moxwood Dread Knight to try and
he's starting his engines. The value momentum breaker.
Momentum breaker for a discard here. Gonna get met with negate. Yep. So you're still getting a cards out of Livy hand, but the fact that it doesn't stick around in play is the most important thing while you're trading your counter magic for these spells. Oh, and one of my
here we go.
Uncommon that got printed recently. The what are people calling this? What is it? Poor man's
dig through time.
Dig through time. It's really good dig through time cosplay here.
Tell me about stock up, Akira.
3 mana, you get to look at the top 5 cards of your deck, and you get to put 2 of them in your hand. So this is a divination effect that let you see 5 card deep. And you just get the best 2 out of it. This card is absolutely bonkers.
And we see Livy keeping 2 mana available for a Get Lost that they found off of stock up, in addition to 1 other card that we have yet to see. Surveil land comes out for Bismon. Has to put the Gearhulk in the graveyard because we're busy looking for lands right now. And it looks like Bismon just going to be passing the turn back to Livy, who's thinking about doing something with this 2 mana.
We're Get Losting this Hopeless Nightmare. Yeah. Like I think we already have Get Lost in hand, and we drew another Get Lost from the stock up. So pretty freely to fry out this Get Lost on the Hopeless Nightmare, just so Bismon doesn't pick it up and give us more trouble later.
So the one good thing about Hopeless Nightmare, as we see Bismon looking at 2 cards from the top of his deck here, is Hopeless Nightmare says when it's put into the graveyard from the battlefield, scry 2, not just when you sacrifice it.
Yep.
So this Get Lost wound up helping Bismon fix his draws by unfortunately has to put a Thrun into the graveyard. That is not what you want to be doing in this matchup.
Yeah, and Bismon is just like missing all of these land drops, and like Livy just pulling ahead, just make sure they're making land drops every turn, and these land drops are going to convert into more and more threat or more answers.
We have 4 mana. Overlord of the Mistmoors hits the battlefield. So we got 2 Maws, and if we're Get Losting a Hopeless Nightmare and tapping a bunch of mana and keeping 2 available for interaction, I have to say that the Azorius deck is in a good spot right now.
Yeah, so this is where you want to get. This is the spot where you want to get to with Azorius Control, is where you can deploy a threat or a card draw spell and hold up 2 mana for any of your interactions.
I thought you were going to say when you have double the lands of your opponent, because that's also a pretty
That's also a
solid
pretty
thing.
good spot, yeah.
All right, Mosswood Dread Knight, though. So that's still going to end up happening here. Are we going to wind up negating it? It looks like
no,
we used the negate.
Yeah, we don't have a counter magic here for this.
All right, we find land number 4 for Bismon. Thankfully, it comes to play untapped with Fabled Passage, having the 4th land here. And we're going to play Mosswood Dread Knight. And that's it. That's our turn. That's what we were finally able to do off of 4 mana here. Bismon has been digging and digging and is finally finding a payoff for it. But now Livy's going to get to untap, and if they have land number 7, could potentially just slam a second hard-casted Overlord.
Yeah, and it's kind of hard to deal with this monster with Dread Knight if your only removal is Get Lost. This is how Bismon can like really get back into the game, where you kind of get Livy to remove this Mosswood Dread Knight over and over, and then you just keep drawing card off of it. Oh, that's a blast zone.
I was like, all right, Control Master, what is that? Blast Zone. That's a blast from the past, and that's a great way to also deal with all of the low drop things that our Bismon's deck is going to be putting into play.
Yeah, can't quite kill all the 2 drops in play yet. You do have to spend a turn to give it a counter.
I think Livy has some time.
So map targeting the... Oh, another Hopeless Nightmare.
But are we at the point where Bismon wants to keep that on top? Looks like he's really considering it. Looking at hand as well.
I think if you really want to put some pressure on Livy, you keep this on top, you crack a second map, you make this into a 5/4, and then you bin the Hopeless Nightmare. Yeah, keep it on top. Will we do it again, though?
Looks like maybe attacks first, just going in for 4. Is this going to pull the trigger on the Get Lost in Livy's hand, though? Because that'll just let us draw a card, and then we can draw and reap and just play this Hopeless Nightmare. Oh,
Ryzen. Perfect answer. Perfect answer for Mosswood Dread Knight.
Dang, that is the one removal spell Bismon didn't want to have to deal with.
Yeah, and this is why Ryzen kind of took up the place of Elspeth's Might. It costs 1 more mana, but it's a clean answer to everything that your opponent play.
In that case, it would have done the same thing because the Mosswood Dread Knight was only a 3 toughness card.
Yeah,
but if Bismon mapped again,
yeah, then
he got baited.
Smite would not be. Oh, and follow up with a Preacher.
Yeah, Preacher of the Schism's not a bad follow-up here, though. Bismon's going to potentially be able to recoup some card advantage if Livy doesn't have another answer, which we know there was a Get Lost in hand.
Yeah, just answers on answers here. But I believe that is Livy last card. I don't think they have any cards left in hand. But this Found Port may be able to stock up again in a little bit.
All right, Livy going to the skies, swinging in for 2 with the little moth guys, and that's going to wind up being a little bit of extra damage. Looks like Seachrome Coast was the draw for turn that comes into play tapped, and just the passing of the turn, this Overlord about to come off of cooldown soon.
Yeah, and Ultimate's ready in a turn or 2.
All right, we have Preacher of the Schism number 2, and then tapping 1 additional mana to map on top of it. Let's see what we find. It's a land. We probably want to play that.
So play it, immediately use it to map.
All right, Bismon's finally finding his lands. Unfortunately, it's on like turn 9 of the game.
Map it again.
And yet another land. All right, so in Bismon's defense, finding 3 lands with your maps is not the worst thing because you're able to play 1.
They just spend 3 mana to draw 3 cards.
That's not stock up.
That's better.
Well, I mean, you didn't get to look at 5 of them and put the lands on the bottom.
But you did get like 3 lands off the top of your deck.
The one downside is this Preacher of the Schism is not very large. It doesn't really matter in the grand scheme of things unless Bismon was trying to get it to have enough toughness to attack through the impending Overlord that's coming off of impending this turn. But, I mean, the Preacher is still a great way to check the Overlord, but putting 2 additional flyers in the play may just be enough for Livy to win the game.
Yeah, but the thing is, Livy now is able to put counter onto this blast zone, and that just become a removal spell for this Preacher here.
Oh yeah, I forgot. It's put X charge. It's not Ratchet Bomb. It's just put X.
You just get to put however many counter you want.
So tapping 4 puts 2 counters on it. Blast Zone's on 3. That's going to potentially blow up this Preacher of the Schism. And Livy doesn't even have to pull the trigger right now. Livy could just wait to see if Bismon draws and does anything before blast zoning on Bismon's turn.
Yeah, I mean, Bismon just kind of have to price into, I'm going to go to combat. And then Livy's like, okay, I'm going to activate my blast zone now.
Yeah, the one thing is, though, is this makes Livy spend 3 mana on destroying the Preacher as opposed to doing something else.
Mana.
Oh, yeah, because you have to tap the blast zone and get rid of it.
I wouldn't tap the Found Port.
Thinking about it.
Oh.
Did it.
I would have kept the Found Port to draw a card with this.
Well, Akira, that's why we're in the caster booth and not playing in the 3-0 matchup. Oh, Day of Judgment was the other card in hand. So we spent the same amount of mana to get rid of the card. Oh, but we have the Reclamation Stage coming in, blowing up the Overlord, and all of a sudden, in a swift series of events, and another Preacher this gives
That's a
him.
Preacher. That's 3.
Well, Bismon had a ton of cards in hand from not having the lands, and now all of a sudden, Livy's in top deck mode. Tap that. Oh, okay, there's a second Fountain Port.
Oh, there's a second.
Has the second Fountain Port to potentially cash in this critter for a card, but looks like instead going to be making a treasure to. Oh, sorry, fish token? Fish token. That puts Livy down to 15, but now Bismon is the one that has 2 creatures that can attack, a Preacher. This gives him to draw cards, and is the one with 3 cards in hand to the control deck now having just 1.
Yeah, and this Preacher won't be drawing any cards because Bismon does have more life than Livy.
No.
They have less life.
Yeah,
than
Bismon has less life, so that's why it's not
does
drawing cards.
Not drawing cards. So.
But that's only going to be 1 more turn, or if there's a Hopeless Nightmare in Bismon's hand, or a Pixie to bounce this Hopeless Nightmare that is on the battlefield, that'll put him at even and get all the benefits.
Yeah. That's the thing about Preacher. Okay, I think we're drawing cards here. Kind of forced to a little bit.
Yeah, cashing in that fish to draw a card, finding a Restless Anchorage. It's the first creature land.
Yeah, not really what we want to see.
Are you considering attacks here?
I think we still attack.
We're just trying to keep Bismon's life total low that he doesn't draw cards.
Yeah, that's the main thing. We really don't want creatures to start drawing cards because that's how we fall like more and more behind. Because at the moment, I'm pretty sure Livy feel quite behind.
All right, so we get a 1/1 lifelink vampire. We're swinging him for 4. That's going to even up the life totals here.
Oh, just take a damage here. Could have make a fish to block, but that's only save 1 damage.
Yeah, because you're paying 1 life to make the fish, right? Oh, there's the Pixie. All right, so we had the Pixie for the Hopeless Nightmare bounce. So good play on Livy to attack in there. And then Hopeless Nightmare again. What do we get? The Willy Fleet!
Still lose the 2? But we did the thing.
All right, it wasn't turn 1. It was turn 1 with a 0 after it, or like 11 or something. But the Willfleet Liege comes in and does what it needs to do against the Hopeless Nightmare. Oh, but a Meticulous Excavation coming out from Bismon's side, and we can bounce and replay this Hopeless Nightmare, get Livy down to 7.
Oh, we picked up the nowhere to run though.
Oh, well, we can just do this and shrink the Overlord, or we could shrink the Overlord token. We can shrink the the Whitleaf Leech itself if it so chooses to attack, and then all of a sudden the Nurturing Pixie or the Vampire can trade with it proactively.
Yep.
But we did wind up also making a fish on Livy's end step, so they are going down to 8. So this puts Bismon firmly in the position of, I have more life than you, deal with my Preacher. Looks like we're cashing in a token for a draw card, probably on the fish.
Oh, this is better. This is stock up.
Oh, okay. We're tapping 3 for the stock up. We look at 5. We get 2.
There's another stock up.
Probably, Overlord of the Mistmoors, No More Lies, stock up. I think there was a land, and I don't know what that last card was.
I believe I saw a dissection tool.
Oh, that's an interesting card, especially against Bismon's deck, because he's not usually playing, he's not usually playing like super aggressively, so you wouldn't think that, I'm going to put that card in, but I guess it's just like almost like a batter skull.
Yeah, it's just a bat. It
doesn't bounce itself like a Cryptic Coat can.
Yeah, but the thing is, there's a lot of funky thing you can do where you sacrifice the token that like the Overlord makes.
That's not what I wanted to do. That's what I wanted to do. Silly me.
And then you can put the dissection tool onto something big, like a Beza or an Overlord, and just get a bunch of life back.
So we'll have to see what Livy chooses to put in their hands from this stock up. But stock up being probably the best top deck in the top deck in the deck.
That was that was the best top deck you could have asked for. But tough decision here. I'm pretty sure you never taking the counter magic here.
No. All right, so small dig through time. Dig through watch. Dig through hourglass. Small kind dig through time.
What about Treasure Cruise?
Treasure Journey. 3-hour tour.
Treasure Tour.
Tapping 5, though. So, yeah, kept the dissection tools out of all of that. So that's going to give us a manifest. That's going to be a 4/4.
2 lands, so
And we're not too worried about losing those.
not too bad. So now we can trade with this creature.
Ooh, we can also just swing with our token, sacrifice to equip to our Wiltleaf Liege, and have it live through some sort of minus shenanigans.
Yeah, and the biggest thing is this dissection tool is also a 4/4, so it won't die to that nowhere to run.
Yeah.
But if we do like reattach the dissection tool to the Wolfleaf Leech, then we're attaching it to the moth and try to attack? No. On the Wolfleaf Leech.
Yeah, we can't do it to the moth because
Yeah.
Bismon will kill it with the nowhere to run. The one thing we have to remember, though, Wiltleaf Liege is a 6/6 with this dissection tools and can attack right now. Bismon cannot bounce the nowhere to run with Meticulous Excavation outside of his turn, nor does he have enough mana to do it. But now Bismon has to decide, do I shrink the Wiltleaf Liege and make my opponent only gain 6 life? Or only gain 3 life instead of 6?
I also would have attacked
It's a 6/6,
with
is that
the
it?
moth.
Well, there's a Nurturing Pixie right there.
Yeah, so you kind of force Bismon to block with the Nurturing Pixie if we want to get rid of the...
And he's trading.
No, he's trading. So this is good. You traded 2 creatures for one of yours, and then
Wait, Livy's gaining 6 here.
only gains 3, I believe. Should only gain 3.
Interesting. Unless, did Bismon know where to run something else?
No, that was the only attacking creature. So
Let's see if the players, no, already going into combat, so. And at that point, because of that, Livy went up 6 life instead of going up 3. So that means that this creature, the
maybe
Schism,
Bismon know where to run after damage.
oh, double block and then after damage nowhere to run. That could be
Yeah,
something.
That could be something.
Seems a little off kilter
Yeah.
because you could have saved 3 life, but I guess if that is the sequencing, then oh well. All right, so we're gonna bounce and replay Hopeless Nightmare with the Meticulous Excavation.
Yes. Okay.
Okay.
Yep.
So that'll put Libby to 10 and get rid of this other. Oh, the Overlord of the Mistmore is the other thing that took off the stock up.
Couldn't deploy both of them and staring down the Meticulous Excavation plus Hopeless Nightmare. That's just 4 mana, 2 damage every turn, which is not too shabby.
Not being able to bounce the nowhere to run, though, is a little bit unfortunate for Bismon because this dissection tools is going to start racing him pretty proactively here, especially with this moth that's in the air.
I'm surprised Bismon didn't pick up the Reclamation Sage and then play it again.
I mean,
to
he still
answer the
has
dissection tool.
that play next turn, but I think what he wanted to do was knowing that the stock up was played, that last card in hand was probably pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah, the one downside to the Meticulous Excavation is this can only be activated on your turn, and I believe you can only activate it once.
Yes.
Unfortunately, our internet's been a little bit slow, but here we go. Yeah. Oh, you can activate it multiple times, but
Yeah,
you can only
but you can
activate it during your turn.
yeah.
So, playing the way that Bismon played, I guess it was considering, do I pick up the nowhere to run and then not play the Preacher? But double Preacher may just be enough to start racing Livy on board.
So, tacking in for 4, gain 4.
This one will actually gain 4 life for Livy here.
I will.
Do we have? Are we sacking this to draw a card and then cast a sweeper?
Ooh.
Oh, I think that's what we're doing.
That's super interesting. I guess we can. Well, we can't equip dissection tools onto our restless anchorage unless we start making fish to do so. But yeah, that board wipe is massive here against Bismon. That just wipes out all of the creatures that he chose to do instead of bouncing his other permanents with the Meticulous Archive. All right,
Yeah.
sorry, Meticulous Excavation.
And now Bismon still have 1 card in hand, but the only thing he can really do is Hopeless Nightmare, however many times he got mana for it.
Yeah, it's 4 mana to pick up and recast Hopeless Nightmare.
Oh no!
It's another Will Leaf Leash off the top.
Will Leaf Leash off the
This one
top.
with wide eyes at the camera too. It's like, well, that's not good for me. Oh, and now we can even just make a fish and equip the dissection tools to the Wilt Leaf Liege.
Oh, this is terrible.
We threw our momentum breaker at turn 2 into the graveyard as well. We just played it face up into a counter spell. All right, so we're going to be able to save 3 damage, but now all of a sudden Livy has completely bounced back from... It was Bismon stuck on lands, bouncing back and throwing a bunch of things on the battlefield, and then that one stock up from Livy completely turning the tides of this game.
And you see how important these Will Leaf Leech is against this kind of Pixie as Hopeless Nightmare, Momentum Breaker shenanigan, where you can just get free 4/4 into play.
Sack the fish to play.
This is 6. I don't think you know where to run here. You kind of have to save it.
So you can just kill it next turn?
Yeah, so you try to trade with it. Oh, but this is lethal. So you have to know where to run the land here to make sure it's not lethal.
Yeah, I think so. Oh, no, he's shrinking it.
He's shrinking. Okay. So
Okay, so
take
yes.
5 down to 3. Gain 3. So does gain 3 this time. So probably Bismon did the post combat damage last. That's why Livy gained 6 last time.
All right, Bismon. 1 card in hand. A bunch of things on the battlefield. What can you do to survive? It's not enough now to just bounce nowhere to run and kill the Wilt Leaf Liege because the Restless Anchorage is lethal. Momentum Breaker would be great.
Does he have a second Momentum Breaker?
No, that's it. Bismon says good game, and it's going to be Livy taking the match 2 games to 1. It was a grind, it was a slog, but Livy's deck was stocked up on answers.